First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
And hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Appreciate you all joining us. We are live here at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, so depending on when you're watching this. And we are going to be talking about something that happened a while ago, 1971, actually. There was a Boeing 727 that was hijacked. A man who later became known as D.B. Cooper, at least that moniker, jumped out of that plane. Over the years, pieces of a parachute have been found. There have been money that's been found, but no trace of him. However, the person we're going to be talking to right now is actually out there retracing what could have been the escape route of D.B. Cooper. And if you've ever watched a show on D.B. Cooper, you've probably seen our guest. And I'm talking about Eric Eulis, who's joining us right now. Eric, literally out there in the field, next to a field anyway, walking. And and Eric, I want you to give everybody just kind of a rundown of what it is that you're doing right now.
Yeah, basically, as I have a truck passing me right here. What comes with the territory. I don't think D.B. Cooper had to endure this, but what I'm doing is I'm reenacting what I believe was D.B. Cooper's escape route. I believe very firmly that he landed very near where the money was found in 1980 on Tina Bar. So essentially, I got a hold of some parachutes, just like D.B. Cooper jumped with, a 20-pound bag of cash with 200 grand in it, attaché case that ostensibly carried a bomb, and situated myself about a mile, 3/4 of a mile actually, from Tina Bar where the money was buried, and started walking with all that stuff on me. And then once I got to Tina Bar, I buried the cash, offloaded the parachutes. Now I just have the attaché case, and I'm walking into town to what used to be the Greyhound bus terminal there on 5th and Main in Vancouver. So all told, it's about 11 miles, this reenactment. So I'm just trying to prove that I'm as tough as D.B. Cooper, at least as far as the walk is concerned.
Okay, let me ask this. You didn't actually have a suitcase with 200 grand in cash, did you?
No, it just replicated the size and the weight. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, because if you left that out there right now, yeah, that's going to be a whole other issue for you. But so you put that there. Now, what leads you to believe that this was the escape route that he took?
Well, primarily because of the money, where the money was found. You know, where the FBI believes that the jet flew was quite a distance from where the money was found. It's clear to me, looking at the scientific evidence and other evidence, that the money ended up buried on the beach by a person, by a human being. And obviously, if a human being buried the money, in all likelihood, it was D.B. Cooper himself on the night of the skyjacking. So I just think that he landed very near the area. And listen, I can attest to it now. When you're saddled with 65 pounds worth of parachute and money and everything else, you don't want to be walking very far with that stuff. So 3/4 of a mile was about as much as I could handle before I had to offload it, and then obviously make the journey into town. So it just makes sense to me that just as just simply dealing with the physical aspects of the case, that it's just not plausible that the guy landed very far from where the money was found. And there are other things as well that I believe indicate that he landed very near this area.
So clearly, I mean, and this goes without saying, but just to reiterate it, you believe that he did successfully land when he parachuted out. He didn't perish on the way down or anything like that.
I tell you what, there's only a couple things that I'm 100% certain of in this case. One of those is that he survived. I'm absolutely convinced he survived, buried the money, and actually returned at a later date, probably during the flood of 1972 on the Columbia River, which was in June, and under cover of darkness retrieved most of the money. I believe 3 of the packets accidentally got left behind, and that's ultimately what was found in 1980 by a little boy, 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram at that time.
So you think that he did go back there and retrieve some of that, and that's why the rest of it was never found?
Yeah, and again, this is more than just theory and conjecture. We've actually got science that backs some of this up. A couple of years ago, one of the bills that was found on the beach was analyzed, and they discovered that there were these things called diatoms. These are organisms that actually bloom in the Columbia River, but only during the summer months. So we know that the money was exposed to the Columbia River, but during the summer, not during November when he jumped. And I believe that's indicative of when he actually went back and retrieved the money. Probably being concerned that there's historic flooding taking place at that point, and perhaps the buried money would be uncovered or swept out to the Pacific Ocean. So he saw it as really having no choice but to go back and retrieve it, again, presumably under the cover of darkness. And some of that money was in the form of loose packets. And there you go. He retrieves what in effect would have been about $194,000, and just overlooked 3 other packets that just stayed buried in the sand, neatly stacked upon each other as they were found in 1980. And the rest is history, as they say.
So going along with that, he lands, previous to recovering that, he lands, buries the cash, and now this escape route that you're walking on. What is it that leads you to believe that this is the escape route, or this is where he went after doing that?
It's the only way out. It's the only way out. There's only one road out from where the money was buried, the Fazio Sand and Gravel, to Civilization, Vancouver, the Greyhound bus terminal, someplace like that. It's just not realistic that the guys, being Rambo here, hiking through sticker bushes and thickets and trees and tall grass and everything, when there's a perfectly suitable road here, Lower River Road. And of course, this occurred Thanksgiving Eve, 1971. And I'm certain at that point, he probably made the 11-mile journey and didn't see a single vehicle. Obviously, right now, apparently everybody in the world decided they want to come check this thing out with me and is driving by. But again, Thanksgiving Eve, 1971, I think it's very, very quiet and a very different story for him.
So, if he made that walk, survived it, got to the bus stop, I guess, potentially, still holding, well, I guess not holding onto the cash at that point, just holding the briefcase that you have right there, or what that would have been. Where is it that you think he went after that? Because wouldn't he be kind of a mess too, just from climbing through all that?
Well, there is other scientific evidence that I actually spoke to about a year ago that came from the tie, because there's only 2 pieces of physical evidence certifiably attached to this case. One is the money that I just referenced, and then one was a skinny black clip-on tie. There were some very rare titanium and antimony metal particles on that tie that I happened to discover through analyzing the particles on the tie, and they point very specifically to a company called Remcrew Titanium that was headquartered or based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they had a lot of contract business with Boeing. So I'm of the opinion that D.B. Cooper worked for this company, was probably furloughed or laid off in 71 when a lot of this was going on, of course, related to Boeing, and came out here because there was some familiarity with the Boeing area, or rather the Seattle area, but didn't live here, of course, and pulled it off. So I think what he did is ultimately went back to Pittsburgh and probably observed things for a while, left the money buried in the beach for a while, and then again, about 7 months later in the June of 72, during this flooding event, took that opportunity to actually make the journey out here to retrieve the cash off of Tina Bar. So that's what I believe happened. So I think his plan actually was to end the day the same place he started the day, which was Seattle. I think the evidence is very clear that he probably intended on jumping about 6 or 7 minutes after the jet departed Seattle, but he ended up getting delayed by about half an hour. And when he did jump, he ended up being obviously in the Vancouver, Portland area.
So with all of this, that you've researched with it, and you're thinking that, he went to Pittsburgh, came back, got the money. Over the years, there's been a lot of people who have claimed to have been D.B. Cooper, or claimed to have known who it was, claim that there's some kind of evidence that it's a certain guy or a certain person is claiming this. Do you have any idea who you think D.B. Cooper actually was?
Well, I have a person of interest, somebody that I'm very intrigued by, who checks off a lot of the boxes in terms of the physical evidence, specifically related to the tie. A guy who was a metallurgist, worked for this Remcrew Titanium, Pittsburgh, matches the physical description in terms of his height, age, and everything else. And I know he traveled to Seattle with his company to Boeing specifically on business, because I actually have talked to his former boss. And his boss was the one who put me onto the guy. This guy's named Vince Peterson. Vince Peterson passed away in 2002. So I find him a very intriguing and compelling person. But that said, at this point, he's nothing more, a little more than just somebody that I'm interested in or intrigued with. And, we'll see if I can, get my hands on some DNA or something of that nature that can, settle the matter once and for all.
Well, looking at this, the fascination with D.B. Cooper that's just been there over all of these decades. People are still interested in it. We're going to talk about your shirt here in a second with CooperCon. But what is it that you think it is that keeps people so interested and so fascinated with the story of D.B. Cooper and what could have happened to him?
First of all, there's sort of this James Bond-esque component to it. It's just kind of cool in a way. And, I don't want to call it a victimless crime, because obviously the flight personnel were aware of what was going on, and they didn't know what was going to happen when all was said and done. But Cooper did make certain and insisted that the passengers not be made aware of what was taking place. So the passengers actually had no idea the jet had been skyjacked until they departed the plane in Seattle. So it was only at that point, when they're off the jet, that they realized that they had been skyjacked. But I think that James Bond-esque part is part of it. The fact that nobody, was harmed physically or anything of that nature. And let's face it, was the early 70s. I mean, you've got, the 60s was very tumultuous civil rights, riots, assassination of JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., Robert Kennedy. Kent State was a few months before, Vietnam. So you've got just a tumultuous time in U.S. history. And I think that played a part. So, right out of the gate, from the very beginning, people were effectively rooting for the guy. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not rooting for the guy. The guy was a criminal. But, 52 years out here, it's fascinating. I just find it fascinating. I know it's solvable. I think it will be solved.
We might be losing Eric just a little bit there. I mean, quite honestly, he's walking out on a country road as he's reenacting the escape route there, the potential escape route of D.B. Cooper. Eric, I'm still talking, so if you hear me and are able to join back in, let me know. But we may have lost him just for a minute there.
I got you. I'm getting you intermittently here.
There we go. I got you now.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if you can hear me or not, but the other critical thing is this is real. This really happened. I mean, there was a real guy who is commonly known as D.B. Cooper. We're dealing with other things like Bigfoot, for example, or the Loch Ness Monster. You never really know if those are real or not. D.B. Cooper was definitely real, and I believe it's a solvable case, and I think it will be solved when all is said and done.
What's the reaction been like from the Vancouver community and just, the Portland community, I guess, as a whole, the region, to this reenactment that you're doing?
It's been very positive, actually, and it's interesting because about 20 minutes ago, a woman and her 4 young kids stopped by and said, "Hey, aren't you Eric Eulis?" Apparently they were aware that I was making the walk, so they wanted to stop by and just say hi. So it's kind of, it's unusual. It's interesting, but, it's different. It's fun. It's kind of cool. It's a real life mystery. It's solvable. It's harmless at this point, 52 years out. Does it really matter if we solve the case? No, not really. But it's just kind of a cool, Pacific Northwest legend. And I guess I'm doing my darndest to try to make it a legend no more by virtue of trying to figure out who this guy was. But having said that, even unveiling his true identity, I don't know that would really change much, because it's just a fascinating event. that occurred nearly 52 years ago.
Well, and you've got the shirts, the CooperCon shirt. Can you tell everybody what that is?
Yeah, CooperCon is an annual event that brings together experts, witnesses, first-hand witnesses, like the guy who sat directly next to D.B. Cooper on the jet, flight crews, siblings from the flight crew, or not siblings, for example, the captain, his daughter, FBI agents, and so forth. This year, it's taking place in Seattle, actually at the Museum of Flight. It's a 3-day event, November 17 through November 19. And this is the 5th year. It's the 5th year we've been doing CooperCon, and it's just it's interesting, it's fascinating, it's fun. It gives people an opportunity to learn about the case and hear from witnesses, firsthand witnesses, and so forth. But also, I really encourage the involvement of the audience as well. So I want to hear what other people's ideas and thoughts and theories are. And, invariably you find out that there are a lot of people that have their own ideas and suspects, and, they like a venue where they can talk about it. So it's just 3 days of an awful lot of fun.
Speaking of the audience side of things, I think it's still so interesting how much this story still captivates the attention of people worldwide when it comes to D.B. Cooper.
And you're absolutely right. Worldwide is precisely it. I have a website, a personal website that follows a lot of my investigation into the case. And I watch the traffic, and I get an enormous amount of traffic from the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. So primarily the English-speaking territories, but there is an enormous amount of international interest in this case. It's really its own unique slice of Americana. So not only resonates obviously here within the United States, but abroad as well.
Eric, okay, you're gonna be, we've got to talk to you here on part of your walk, part of your journey for this 11-mile walk. You're gonna get there to the ending point. What are you gonna do at the end?
Spend the $200K I just got away with. No. At that point, I think just sort of take measure of the experience, because the real investigative value of this type of thing is, to the best of my ability, putting myself in his shoes and just getting an idea of what he experienced. For example, when I started the walk, about 3/4 of a mile up the road from Tina Bar, the thing that I noticed is that really the first bit of civilization that I came upon was the Fazio sand and gravel area, which is where the money was buried. And that makes sense to me because D.B. Cooper, presumably landing in an area he's not familiar with, realizes he has to bury the cash. He can't very well walk into Vancouver with a 20-pound bag of cash in a Seafirst bank bag. So he's got to bury it somewhere temporarily, but it's got to be a place that he can find again. So, noting the name of the Fazio sand and gravel, it's an ideal area to do it. As he can get into town and eventually just open up the yellow pages and get an address and drive back at some point. And I think that's effectively what happened. So it does actually shed light on what this guy must have experienced. And I think there's value in that. There's investigative value in that. Plus, it's just kind of a fun, interesting thing to do.
Right. And it's pretty good weather for it, too. So you out on that.
It worked out really well. I know D.B. Cooper would have been envious, of course, but it wasn't all bad for the guy. It was about 42 degrees on the ground, a little drizzly. So as long as he's walking, he's going to be warm and comfortable. But, of course, I'm rolling a T-shirt here and tennis shoes. So, I didn't see the necessity of wearing a suit and a raincoat and all that good stuff. So this is pretty close. I mean, I think this is going to give me a pretty good idea of what this man endured 52 years ago.
Well, Eric, thank you very much for joining us here for this, joining us live as you're out there walking. Stay safe. I've seen a couple of trucks drive by you, so watch out for them. We don't want that part of the story. So we just be careful out there. And yeah, dude, this is great. This is so much fun talking about this.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you very much. And I'm glad that you all got the opportunity to enjoy a portion of this walk with me today. So it's a lot of fun. So stay tuned.
All right, will do. Yeah, I want to know the follow-up. I want to know what you learned from this. So Eric, appreciate it very much.
You bet. You bet. Cheers.
And
Thanks.
cheers. Yeah. And for everybody joining in live, again, this is Fox 12 Now. We broadcast live here every weekday, 1 p.m. Pacific, and then throughout the afternoon. So covering breaking news or things like this. We have Eric live on the road walking DB Cooper's escape route. I mean, where else are you going to get that? This is the fun of the show here too, that we get to talk about things like this. And we're live streaming. So thanks everybody for joining. I will be back at 2 p.m. Pacific. I've got some more things coming up about, actually the topic's going to be about how live streaming television may be changing. And there's an app out there that may change the way you interact with it. You interact with other people. So we're discussing that coming up at 2 p.m. But I'm going to sign off for right now. I'll talk to you too. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. And we're off. Eric, that was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun. I enjoy it. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to